Hey boys and girls, Mr. Rush with your next day's lesson here. First, we'll talk a little bit about factory girls. Remember, in a Lowell factory, they had room and board and a place to work all in one spot. Your question is, Lowell factory girls, how much did they earn roughly in a week and what percent of that went to room and board? Monday's answer, North Dakota drinks the most per person. Wisconsin falls in at about sixth place, 35.6 gallons per person. Monday's daily news. On Monday, we learned about lesson 10.1 economic growth. We saw that two things increased agricultural growth. The cotton gin or engine produced cotton more rapidly, taking the seeds out, and the growth or expansion of cotton mills. Remember, we memorized that mill with Samuel Slater. We stole that idea and did it ourselves. Finally, we talked about how Louisville, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati's cities grew up in size because they were on major rivers. Today, your job in lesson 10.2 is to learn about how expansion of transportation networks, roads, turnpikes, and eventually river use would help us get out west faster. Here are your goals. What would help America expand out west? What are the advantages to road and river travel? And analyze the impact of steamboat, turnpikes, and eventually the next day, canals. All right, your job is very simple today. Finish your 3-step completion folder for 10.1 and then do the notes. Just start the notes for 10.2. We'll wrap up the next day. Okay, here's the story. The huge main idea here for 10.2 is that we gathered newly acquired lands. Okay, these lands opened up many natural resources and space for farmers. In our first census or official count of the people, we had 4 million people. Most of these lived east of the Appalachian Mountains, 100 miles from the Atlantic Ocean for shipping reasons. We got to get our crops quickly to market before they spoil. That was the key. By 1820, our population grew to about 10 million people. There were 2 million living out west. Think of that. That's huge. There were no roads, so these people traveled on these rinky-dinky little goat trails. A trip from New York to Buffalo, for example, in New York, would take 3 weeks because it was 363 miles. Think about that. We can get that far in 6 hours today or faster. All right, take a look at this chart. What does this chart show about how shipping changed from 1800 to 1850? Pause right now for a second. Now that you're back, you should notice that the shipping cost went extremely down, right? It went really, really down. And that would make it easier to live out west and more affordable. Okay? Roads and turnpikes. Turnpikes are toll roads. If you've ever been to Illinois, you've probably paid a toll. Yes, you might have an easy pass, but sometimes you have to pay cash, right? Back then, there was a huge need to get people out west quickly. So they built private roads, or private companies built roads so they could get out there quicker, make some money. They first started out as corduroy roads, crushed stone roads, or laid lumber. We can see that here. Think about how bumpy that would be. Uncomfortable, but way faster. There was also a national road built. It was completed in 1818, and it helped states like Ohio, Illinois, Indiana become states more quickly. It was seen as a military necessity. We had to protect our people out west from natives, maybe the British again, the French, whatever. In the 1950s, more recently, the same thing happened to protect our country against the Cold War. We built the Alcan Highway, the Alaskan-Canadian Highway, and it was to help protect us against the Russians. Here's your first challenge question. How far could you travel on a turnpike in 1820? Take a guess. Now that you're back, if you said 60 to 70 miles, you're correct. How incredible is that? That's immensely fast. All right, last part here before I close. River travel. There were many advantages and disadvantages to river travel. Besides roads, people would take rivers if they could. River travel was not only faster, it was more comfortable. And think of all the goods you could pack on this boat versus on a donkey or a horse. Huge. It would lower shipping costs. Disadvantages. Most rivers on the East Coast go north and south, so you couldn't really get east and west. That was one problem. Another problem was you were only limited really to fast downriver travel. Upstream travel, very slow. To wrap up quick, Robert Fulton, this man here, he created the power steamboat to make things much faster river travel-wise, and his first boat right here is the Claremont. All right, we'll cover the rest tomorrow, but that's the gist of it. And just to wrap up quickly, please finish your 10.3 completion folder. Take a deep